Welcome to the Punch Out. I'm your host, Alex McNinch, and welcome to another episode. Today, we are going to be covering the NL West as we are almost done with our MLB season previews. We have done the AL East Central, the NL Central, and now the West will be the last one we have to do before the first official games of the MLB season happen tomorrow. As of time recording, it'll be Tuesday and Wednesday. The Dodgers and Cubs will be playing over in Japan. So those games take place at 5:10 in the morning Central Time. So can't wait to wake up super early tomorrow morning and watch those games. But obviously, last week we covered the Cubs to break down one half of that game. Today we'll be doing the Dodgers to get down the other half. Doing the NL West today, obviously. And this is an interesting division, mainly because there is one side of the division that is, there's a guaranteed bottom feeder and there's a guaranteed top tier, top of the food chain group. And then everyone in between, there's kind of like, well, maybe this team could do better. Could this team fall back? This team could sprout and maybe compete. Could they end up flopping? There's a lot of options that we can go with here. Kind of good sandwich in the middle. So you got your two pieces of bread, then all the other good things in the middle that we got to talk about. So sure, we won't take too much time on the two end pieces, but everything in between, we got some good stuff. There's a lot of news that has come out about this game that's coming up. We have the announced starters. We got who is traveling with the team, who's not going to be traveling with the team, who's going to be playing, potentially missing out on one of the biggest superstars in baseball for this game in Japan. We'll talk about it a little bit later when we talk about the Dodgers, but there's been some injuries going on. Some starters have been announced for opening day. Nothing too detrimental too far to where it is a massive impact or blow, kind of like the Garrett Cole news. So nothing too big of importance to note about with any of those teams. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the NL West. And as I mentioned, there's a clear bottom feeder team in this league, and it is the Colorado Rockies. And if you're not aware of what the Colorado Rockies are, they're bad baseball. It's bad baseball all around. Now, there are some guys on this team where, you look at them and it's like, all right, they have some promising pieces going forward. But the general idea of the Colorado Rockies is that this team absolutely stinks. And I could not agree more, honestly, because they've ran their organization poorly, and it all starts back to how they handled DJ LeMahieu going into free agency, how they handled Nolan Arenado being traded, how they handled Trevor Story leaving, and it all kind of encapsulates into this big moment that forces their hand to this time that we're in, with overpaying for a player and completely setting back their organization for so many years. It's about prospect development with this group, and we'll talk about some of the guys that are very important to this group going forward. And the first guy right off the bat, Brenton Doyle will be your leadoff hitter. He's playing center field. This is a five-tool player, guy who hits for a lot of power, 23 homers last year, drove in 72, 30 stolen bases, hit 260 with a 764 OPS, a 104 OPS plus. This is a guy that, when you look at the Colorado Rockies going forward, you're looking at Brenton Doyle as your stronghold, number one star of this team going forward. And there couldn't be a better guy because he just plays the game the right way. He's a guy that you love to watch. And as a fan of opposing teams, it's like, all right, you know what? The Rockies stink, but at least I know I'm going to watch Brenton Doyle absolutely fly around the baseball field, make great plays in the outfield, and do everything he does at the plate. And then kind of the other guys to note about that are important to this team in their future. Ezequiel Tovar, I love him. I love his glove at shortstop. A 4-win player last year on a team that won 61 games. But 45 doubles, led the NL with that, or led the NL West in that, which is crazy to even think about with who all is in the division. 26 bombs, hit 269. A 763 OPS. This is a guy, sure, he's going to strike out a lot. It's okay, 200 strikeouts, but when you're young in this league and you're playing at a ballpark like you are at Coors Field, You use the elements to your advantage. And Tovar and Doyle have definitely done that and are going to do that going forward. And then the third guy of this three-headed monster of what they're kind of expecting to have as their core group is Michael Toglia. And he's a switch-hitting first baseman, and he might strike out 1,000,000 times a season. But he is going to rake, and especially at Coors Field, he is in the perfect spot to do so. 458 plate appearances last year, hit 25 bombs, 55 RBIs, struck out 147 times. To scale that, it's different, but had a 767 OPS, 105 OPS plus. When you're hitting 217 or 218 as a hitter, I know we use the Kyle Schwarber comparison a lot because it's easy to look at a guy like Schwarber who low batting average, high OPS, high home run rate, high RBIs, good on base. And that's Toglia. Toglia had a higher on base percentage than Ezequiel Tovar, and he's hitting 7th in the lineup projected this year, right? Or 6th in the lineup this year. That's just kind of how it is when you have these types of guys. Sure, they're going to strike out a lot. You take the good with the bad. But when he's producing 25 homers in only 116 games, then you know you've got a guy on your hand. Now, do I think he's going to be the leadoff hitter that Kyle Schwarber is? Maybe not, but you slot him into that 4 hole, then you've got a great cleanup hitter to follow right behind Tovar and bridge the gap between your top guys at the front and then kind of your whatever pieces in the back. Everybody else on the team is kind of whatever. Ryan McMahon, we talked about him with the Brewers a lot. He's here. Chris Bryant, when I alluded to the big contract signing that they had a few years ago that set them back, it was Chris Bryant. They gave him way too much money. He's getting around $30 million a year to play absolutely no baseball. Last year, only played in 37 games. I was there for one of them, and they hated his guts out there. And I love Chris Bryant. We all know Chris Bryant was such an awesome player with the Cubs, traded to the Giants. It was awesome there for the time he was there. And then signed the deal with Colorado and just, quite frankly, hasn't produced and been healthy enough to stay on the field to do anything. They moved him off third base to the outfield, and it just hasn't translated. Nothing has gone right for him, but that's your DH. Other veteran guys, Estrada, Stallings, who had a career year last year, and then they're kind of hoping that Nolan Jones has a good bounce-back year, had a great 2023, kind of had an injury-prone last year, only played 79 games, and hoping that he can bounce back and show off the power that he proved the year before, hitting almost 30 homers. And then Jordan Beck, a guy out of Tennessee that they are really high on, hits a lot of homers. So obviously you can tell what the goal is with the Rockies, is getting guys on the team that are going to hit bombs. And when you play at the ballpark, again, play to the ballpark that you're at. It works out perfectly. Bench guys, Hunter Goodman's a utility, Kyle Farmer, a veteran who's could potentially be a trade deadline piece, Sean Bouchard and Sam Hilliard, just whatever outfielding depth. And the pitching and the rotation, at least there's some promise within the lineup because the pitching rotation and the bullpen just not good at all. Kyle Freeland, German Marquez, Ryan Feltner, who is probably the most promising guy out of all these guys. But Freeland, Marquez, just two veteran guys who are going to have high ERAs, both in the 5s and 6s. And Antonio Sanzatella, just another guy who's going to have a high ERA. Bradley Blaylock, who was a former Red Sox prospect and bounced around a couple teams last year, ends up in Colorado and gets rocked. He has a almost 60 ERA last year. But Ryan Feltner's the guy to kind of look at as a, I guess, good piece in this rotation. I mean, he had a 4.5 ERA. I don't know how good that is, but he threw 162 innings. At least has the ability to learn and understand from what it was. But his FIP was 4.16, so that's pretty solid. He's going to walk a little bit, but I don't know. There's nothing really to be too excited about when it comes to the Rockies and their starting rotation. And the bullpen, just as bad. Tyler Kinsley is their closer, and he has a 6 ERA. All right, 12 saves last year. Seth Halverson is the next guy. He's their setup guy. He's probably the best guy in their bullpen. A 1.46 ERA and 12 innings pitched. I mean, that again, that's small sample size, but whatever. You can take what you get. With him, I don't know. It's the FIP though. The FIP, when you look at it, it's a 3.9, even though he had a 1.46 ERA. So it's kind of how much can you believe in that? Victor Vodnik, a former pitching prospect, not good. He threw 73 in 2/3 innings last year. Luis Peralta, just a whatever piece. Didn't have enough innings to qualify, really. Scott Alexander is going to be probably your guy that you're going to get some value with at the trade deadline. Last year, threw a 2.56 ERA with the A's in 38 and 2/3 innings. Now, how is that going to play in Colorado? Who knows? Because that's the place where pitchers go to die. And then other guys in the bullpen, Jake Bird, he's whatever. Diego Castillo, you might remember from the Rays and the Mariners, who's really, really solid coming off injury, though. Only pitched 10 innings last year, so maybe he can kind of revive what he's doing. And then Jimmy Herget, who is a career 4 ERA guy out of the pen with a funky delivery. This team's not good. That's quite honestly all I'm going to say about that, because there's no need to or kind of go more in depth about them. I've already spent way too much time on the Rockies. They've got guys, though, in the system. Chase Dollander, who was awesome at Tennessee as a starter for them, throws gas. Charlie Condon, they just drafted this past year out of Georgia. He rakes. Brody Beck's another good pitcher that they just drafted this past year at Iowa. Who else do they got? Zach Veen's an outfielder who should be up at the big league level pretty soon. Was a 2020 draft guy. Drew Romo, another catcher that's almost ready to be there. They've got guys. They've got some decent players that they can eventually slide in to be pieces on the team. But right now, Dollander is probably a September call-up. Condon might be opening day next year. And then the rest of the guys is like, they can make the team, but they probably won't. And then you kind of set yourself back. The Rockies won 61 games last year. I only have them winning 3 more rather. 64 and 98 is what I got them at, just because you're expecting Doyle to repeat the year, Tovar to repeat, Nolan Jones to come back, Toglia to advance, and then maybe if you get Dollander at the end, he can get you 2 wins, or whoever else comes in and maybe get you a couple more wins. So, but still, bottom feeder of the NL West rather. The next team we're going to talk about here in the National League West is a team that I'm kind of intrigued about going forward with some of the pieces they got, especially in the lineup, which has not been the case, quite frankly, for the Giants in their lineup, but more rather looking at what they have as a pitching staff. And I'm a massive fan of kind of what they're putting together as a lineup in San Francisco. They got some guys. Big addition this year, Willy Adames coming over from the Brewers. 3-win player, really good glove at shortstop, 251 ERA, or 251 batting average, a 794 OPS, it's 118 OPS plus. And then, other guys around him, Jung-Hoo Lee, who they just they acquired last year or 2 years, I believe it was last year, out of Korea. Had an injury last year, 37 games, but showed some promise in the outfield, hit it pretty well, honestly, got on base a decent amount. But the real guys that we're going to look at outside of Adames are Matt Chapman, who had a career year last year, one of the best years of his career last year, 27 homers, 78 RBIs. Other guys, Helio Ramos had a great year last year, breakout season for him. Patrick Bailey, who can easily slot in as one of the top 3 catchers in baseball after this year. I think he is unbelievable on both sides of the baseball. Great framer, calls the game really well, solid blocker behind the plate, and then he's a switch hitting catcher. So obviously I have a real connection with switch hitting catchers, with Jason Varitek being one of my favorite players of all time. So I have a soft spot for those types of players, but he's another guy that if he improves himself at the plate this year, he's looking at probably one of the best few catchers in the league. Other Wilbur Flores is in the lineup, has some great years in the Mets and just kind of has fallen off. Mike Yastrzemski, that is the grandson of Carl Yastrzemski, if you weren't aware already. He's a whatever piece, but he's been here for so long, so he's just a natural giant. And then a guy who came up last year and really lit it up on the field and was electric was Tyler Fitzgerald. In his 96 games, he had a 280 batting average, 831 OPS, 136 OPS plus. This guy's really good. 17 stolen bases as well, 15 homers, drove in 34. I'm really excited about Tyler Fitzgerald on this team. And as you can tell, I'm kind of a little bit more interested in how this roster or this lineup is more constructed, because I really like a lot of the guys. Their bench is whatever. Sam Huff, backup catcher. Gerard Encarnacion, a career minor leaguer for the Marlins, has come over. Brett Wisely is a slap hitting infielder from the left side. Luis Matos is just kind of whatever in the outfield. But I really like the lineup. I think the lineup is very, very solid. And if you're going to get an extra step from Bailey and Ramos is still there and Jung Hoo Lee is really going to excel to what you expected him whenever you signed him, because at the end of the day, the Giants are just begging someone to take their money. They got Adames to sign. We all remember the Aaron Judge situation where the Giants went after him. There was a report that he signed with the Giants. It didn't come true. So they were just begging for people to take their money. And, if they're showing signs like this of getting these guys and putting these pieces together with Gold Glovers and other guys who are getting on base and hitting for power at a stadium that, quite frankly, just isn't a hitter's ballpark, it's a pitcher's ballpark, then you're looking at a recipe for success to get the Giants right back to where they have been in the 2010s and just every other year making the World Series or winning the World Series. The rotation, as we've known, the Giants to be a very good place to be a pitcher's friendly park, as I just mentioned. They've got some good arms. They got some really intriguing arms. And this is why when I talked about the sandwich of the middle being there's some potential for some shakeup and some changes with these teams. And I don't know. I'm really a fan of what they got. Logan Webb. I am a massive Logan Webb guy. If they do not extend him, I will trade everything in the Red Sox power to be able to get this guy on my team. Last year, through 204 and 2/3 innings, started 33 games, the most in the major leagues, with a 3.47 ERA, had one shutout, had 172 strikeouts. And you're probably like, well, that's not a lot if you're going to throw 204 innings. He's a ground ball guy, sinker ball guy, get you over. He's going to work the counts really fast. He's not going to let the batters work counts. He's going to get through it really fast, but he doesn't walk anybody. Limits hits, a 1.23 FIP, 1.23 WHIP, 2.9 FIP, a 1.11 ERA plus. If that tells you anything about kind of how he is compared to the rest of the league, 11% better in ERA. I think Logan Webb, quite honestly, is proven himself to be a real dude in the MLB when it comes to a starter. Made his first All-Star team last year, very deserving. And now he has the opportunity to learn from the guy that's going to be following up right behind him in Justin Verlander, who signed a one-year deal with this team in the offseason, kind of to get himself at a good ballpark to where, yeah, he's going to be 42, 43 this year. And he's not the same guy as he was before at all. And his body is not going to keep him upright for much longer. He's trying to get to 3,500 strikeouts. That's just quite frankly what's going on with that. So it's an interesting situation. Sorry about that. It's such an interesting situation for Verlander to go to because it allows him to flourish and develop amongst the other young pitchers and good pitchers in this rotation, to where he's not having to be the guy like they expected him to be in Houston, even when he was at his old age. So it allows Verlander to do that. Other guys in this rotation, Robbie Ray, who had some surgery, only pitched 30 and 2/3 innings last year, but looked okay. He was kind of whatever. But Robbie Ray was a guy who won the Cy Young just a few years ago with Toronto. So maybe you can unlock something with him there again. Jordan Hicks, they made a big signing of him. Kind of had some injuries last year, only threw 109 and 2/3 innings, but that's a guy who's going to strike out everybody or he's going to walk everybody. And it's just, you're going to have to accept your fate with that. But he's a hard-throwing right-handed sinker baller and gets a lot of strikeouts. Kyle Harrison was a prospect they were massive fans of from the left side, threw 124 and a third innings last year with a 4.5 ERA. Another guy who's going to strike out a lot of people, but also walk a lot of people pretty quickly. He's got a straight fastball from the left side, a really good curveball, decent changeup, slider. He mixes in every once in a while. But I like Kyle Harrison for the most part when it comes to his development here in this next year, and I think he has a chance to take the next step for this team. And then their bullpen, they've got some sneaky guys that are just really solid. Ryan Walker being one of them, coming out of nowhere last year, being a 3-win player, having a 1.91 ERA, saved 10 games for this team and 80 innings pitched. But he was really, really solid for this group. Strikes out a ton of guys. 99 strikeouts last year, just one shy of the milestone. Tyler Rogers, soft-throwing submarine pitcher, maxes out maybe 88. But he's gross, and his arm slot is nasty, and they used him a lot in 70 innings, had a 2.80 ERA. Camilo Doval, who was the closer for this team, had some confidence issues, had a lot of control issues last year, was getting hit hard, almost a 5 ERA, but he still saved 23 games for the team. Another dude, you just look at him and he's going to walk a lot of guys, but his FIP made him look a lot better. Other guys, Eric Miller, Sam Helly, Lou Trevino, the veteran, Randy Rodriguez, and then former starting prospects for them, Keaton Wynn, round out the bullpen. And it's a solid group. If they perform well, they're going to be good. I mean, that's an obvious statement, but if they perform at the level that they did last year and maybe take a little step up, like if Keaton Wynn, doesn't have a 7 ERA in his 50 innings pitched, then maybe they'll be good. If Trevino can come back after a few years of not playing in the league, maybe he'll be good. And then they got guys in the minor league system that are intriguing to actually pay attention for. Carson Wisenhunt being the guy out of the prospect pitching that is the most exciting to look at. He's a guy that can end up coming up this year. Say Verlander's not good. Say they want to move Jordan Hicks back to the bullpen where he originally was to start his career, and you want to slide Wisenhunt, or maybe Kyle Harrison just isn't good enough yet. It's a guy who played at ECU, East Carolina, and was really, really good. Nasty changeup, good fastball, good slider, curveball needs some work, sometimes some control issues, but a guy that they're really high on and can easily make an impact at the big league level this year. Other guys that they got, Bryce Eldridge is one of their guys that is their top prospect out of everybody. He was the 16th pick in the draft, I believe, in 2023. Yeah, 2023. He was the 16th pick, and they love him a lot. Has a lot of power. As a first baseman from the left side. Other guys, James Tibbs, who they just drafted this past year out of Florida State. Dakota Jordan is another guy that they're in love with out of Mississippi State. Mason Black is another guy that is a name that you might know if you pay attention to their scouting and the prospects. He was a guy that was really, really intriguing a couple years ago. Has a good cutter, good slider. His changeup's not great, has decent control, but he's another dude that can eventually maybe make his way up into that bullpen, especially like as I mentioned, those guys at the end of the bullpen or the front part of the bullpen that just aren't, the end all be all of the bullpen, that you can kind of look at them and say, hey, we've got these prospects that are here that are making some noise, that are willing to come up and try to contribute, and they have the chance to do so when you're on a team that is, somewhat competing, somewhat not. So it allows the Giants some flexibility to go a certain way or another based on however they feel or whatever they feel is if could be right for their team and their organization. So with that being said, it could be a world where we're seeing the Giants 81-81 again. Oh, I forgot to mention, Hayden Birdsong is now back from injury. He's another one of their starters, really good guy. A 4.2 ERA last year. Issue is he walks way too many guys, 4 walks per 9. That could be an issue, but he strikes out 9.5 per 9. He could slide into this rotation that they could trust over Harrison. So maybe Harrison does start the year at AAA, and then they eventually pull him back up and allow him and Black or Wisenhunt to maybe get their way into get their way onto the big league roster without having to force them up there to start. But 81-81 seems safe for the Giants this year, and just kind of who they are as an organization at the moment. They're ready to take the next step with Buster Posey now at the helm. They're ready to take the next step, but they're not ready to compete with the big dogs of this division. And one of the few big dogs that we saw last year in this division happened in Slam Diego. Yes, the San Diego Padres, who won 93 games last year. This was a team that whenever it came to playoff time, I put my hands up and I said, this is the team that I think is going to win the World Series. I think they've got it. They were playing so well down the stretch. They got a good balance of contact and power in the middle of your order. They had the pitching. They had an amazing bullpen. It's just unfortunate that they ran into the Dodgers in the NLDS. And even if you look at that series, it's a 5-game series. They were playing really, really well. In the last 2 games, they just decided to not hit the baseball at all. They get shut out in the final game, and the season just kind of comes to a screeching halt after so much promise of like, hey, maybe the Padres are going to take down the Dodgers. So you would think that maybe after that happening, they kind of reevaluate things and they say, okay, well, we got some injuries. We had some things happen that maybe made us fall back a little bit. Let's go forward and make some additions and get a big splash to be able to get this team ready to compete again against the Dodger team that had already reloaded and geared themselves up for a back-to-back World Series run. That's not the case necessarily. They made a couple signings, but nothing that has made them any better than what they are last year. The lineup stays the same. Luis Arias is going to have the best batting average in baseball pretty much every single year, or one of the best batting averages in baseball. Always one of the best leadoff hitters. He's so good. He's not going to hit the ball out of the park at all, but he's going to get on base. He's going to get singles. He's going to rip doubles, and that's what he does. And then it's obviously followed up by Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the most electrifying players in baseball. Jackson Merrill, who was the Rookie of the Year runner-up last year, an all-star, a Gold Glove caliber player who started his career prospect as a shortstop. And at the beginning of last year, they said, hey, we need you in center field. Do you mind doing that? And he's like, yeah, no problem. I'll do it. And then just go out there and put up a 4.5 WAR season, hitting .292 and an .826 OPS as a rookie, 127 OPS plus. The kid is a stud. The kid is an absolute stud. And then Manny Machado, we all obviously know how good he is based on your opinion on him. He is a good baseball player. Jake Cronenworth is kind of a whatever piece, but had a little bit of a bounce back year after a really, really rough 2023, coming off an extension. Xander Bogaerts, and if you know me, you know I love Bogey, but it's just not a good fit for him. It's not what he expected. It's not what they expected of him. They gave him $290 million, and that's just not what he's worth. And I'm happy for Xander. I'm glad he got paid. Do I wish he was a Red Sox still? 1,000,000%. I love Bogey, but maybe this year will be a bounce back year. He had some injuries last year as well that only allowed him to play 111 games, but a healthy Bogaerts at your 6 or 7 hole is better than most 6 or 7 holes in baseball. And then the final 3 guys, Jose Iglesias, another former Red Sox. They just keep taking our guys. Posted a 3 WAR last year, who last year with the Mets was invited to spring training, did not make the roster, got sent down to AAA. He could have opted out of the deal, and he said, nope, I'm good. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to AAA. I'm going to prove you that I'm good enough to come up to the big league roster. And he came up to the big league roster, started a whole movement around his song, the OMG song. You probably know about it with the Mets, and that was kind of their pedestal in the playoff that allowed them to kind of get to the NLCS and have that momentum behind them. But in a 291 plate appearances last year, he had a 337 batting average, 381 on base, 830 OPS, 137 OPS plus. Guy who really doesn't smack the ball out of the park at all, but he's going to get on base, get you some doubles, get the guys over. A guy that at the bottom of the lineup is an absolute stud. This guy was hitting 2 for the Mets down the stretch and then in the playoffs last year, and now he's your 7-hole hitter. And then the other 2 guys at the bottom of the lineup, Jason Hayward, everybody knows him. He's still cracking around. This is probably going to be his last year or 2 in the majors. He's just kind of around. And then Elias Diaz behind the plate, who will spend his time splitting it with Luis Campusano, who they really like, who just can't play defense. Diaz can play pretty decent defense and has some pop. And then Campusano is all about pop and not about defense. But then Connor Joe's a good guy to have off the bench as well. Iggy Rosario and then Tyler Wade are some other guys that could be their bench pieces here for the team. But the lineup is good. The lineup is very good. I don't mean to really push down on it too much because it really is a good lineup and it's still going to produce really well for them. You're going to have weak pieces everywhere, but what if Merrill has a terrible year this year? What if he doesn't, sustain the success that he had last year? And then it's a whole situation where oh, shoot, now our 3-hole hitter is going to have to drop all the way down here, and we're going to have to force somebody else to be up in this slot that shouldn't be here. And you didn't have enough depth that got you to where you want to be. All your prospects are really just not there yet. So you're forcing your own hand to make another trade, and now pull from that minor league system that might not even be that good compared to the others. They got young guys in the system, but not to the level that everybody else has. They've had some good non-roster invite signings. Martin Maldonado is a good catcher. Gavin Sheets and Yuli Gurriel have some experience, especially Gurriel being a World Series champion. Mike Brosseau, postseason experience. Nico Goodrum, utility guy. Obviously, any chance I can get, I'm going to shout out a guy from Pensacola and Brandon Lockridge. Shout out Catholic. Like, that's just, he's a guy that is going to bring a lot of speed and a lot of good defense. It's about how is his bat going to translate to the next level. But the lineup is okay. My worry becomes what we're about to talk about here in the rotation. And obviously, we all know that the Padres had a lot of depth at the starting pitching position. And last year, during that series against the Mets, I think it was against the Dodgers, Joe Musgrove blew his arm out. And now instantly, actually, I think it might have even been against the Braves in the wild card where his arm just blew out. And it was at that moment, it was like, oh, crap. The Padres might not win at all, because now you're going from Cease, King, Musgrove, Darvish to Cease, King, Darvish, and then bullpen game, panic, duck your head and cover, because you just don't know what's going to come next. And they went out and they acquired some starters. They still have Cease, who is amazing. His name is in trade rumors, so watch out for that. He's in an expiring contract, going to be a free agent after this year. Who knows what his market even could be. Michael King, another guy, his contract's up after this year. Got him in the Juan Soto trade. Ends up being a massive win for the Padres, because you get a guy, Michael King, who was a reliever, turned back to a starter from Boston College. Awesome guy, awesome pitcher, had a 10.5 K per nine, but he's going to walk some guys. But he's still amazing to get in that return for this team. He is good enough to be able to play as a number one starter on any rotation, honestly. But those are two guys now at the top of your rotation where you have uncertainty about their future going forward. You didn't extend them. Then it's you, Darvish, who had a really good year last year compared to what, the past couple of years have been for him with injuries and kind of, the velocity ticking down. How effective could he be? But in 81 2/3 innings pitched, he had a 3.31 ERA. He was really effective. He's never going to walk guys, you know that, but he's not going to strike out guys as much anymore. Not the 11 or 10 K per nine like he had, but he's still an 8. So that's still really, really solid for him. Had a 1.24 ERA plus. It's one of the better ones in the National League. So those are your three spearhead parts of your rotation. And then it's kind of, all right, what after? What do we get after? As I mentioned, they're down Joe Musgrove. They're now down Matt Waldron, who's going to be missing the start of the season. Matt Waldron, a knuckleballer. That's an effective guy. Sure, he had a 5 ERA, but more time in the big league is going to help him. Well, you turn towards the Red Sox pitching staff that was one of the worst in the league last year, and you go, hey, let's get the worst guy from that pitching staff and let's bring him to ours. And they went and signed Nick Pivetta. And say what you will about Nick Pivetta, but he is a high strikeout guy. He's going to walk a lot of guys, going to get hit really hard. They smack homers off of him. 28 home runs off Nick Pivetta last year. Not good. But the good thing about Pivetta is he will post for you. He will be there. He'll give you 6 every single time. Sure, he might give up 8, but he's going to go 6 innings, and he's going to get through whatever he needs to get through. He's going to strike out a lot of guys. Like I said, 172 strikeouts last year. Only threw 145 2/3. Had a little bit of an injury. Started out in the bullpen. Just kind of bounced around a little bit. He missed a couple weeks of the season, so that kind of unfortunately derailed a little bit of his starts, and he was getting hot at that point, and it just, things didn't work out. I don't know. I think he's a good 5, but for now, him having to be your 4, it's like, well, shoot. Sure, your first 2, maybe 3 games of the series or the week are going to be good, but then you can instantly drop 2s so fast with Pivetta, and then either Steven Kolek is going to be the guy to be the fifth starter, or Kyle Hart, who Kolek's a guy that's more their rotation, but Kyle Hart is a guy that a former Red Sox, not good in 2020 at all. I don't know why the Alexa is going off, but was really, really good in 2020, or really, really bad in 2020. Went to the KBO and kind of figured himself out last year with a 2.69 ERA in 26 games started. Struck out 182 guys, a 1.032 whip. He's a lefty, so it gives you a different look in your starters instead of having all righties. So maybe that's something you end up going with over anything else. But then you look towards the depth that they got in the minors, and you're looking at Randy Vasquez, who you also got in the Juan Soto trade. Luis Patino was a non-roster invite. He's not going to start for you at all. And then it's kind of just whenever Waldron gets back, maybe he goes to the bullpen or maybe he starts again. Who knows? But that's where the question mark comes into play. And then the bullpen, I mean, Robert Suarez, a really good closer, 36 saves last year. Jason Adam was awesome in Tampa Bay, acquired at the trade deadline, was awesome for them, had a 1.95 ERA. Jeremiah Estrada had a great year last year, sub-3 ERA as well in 73 2/3 innings pitched, had 94 strikeouts. His FIP was a 2.07, so he was even better than advertised. Adrian Morejon, who was a top pitching prospect for this organization as a starter, converted the bullpen. Not great. Not great at all, but you need lefties. The other lefty they got, Yuki Matsui, a guy coming over to the U.S. for the first time last year. Wasn't really great, but wasn't terrible. Had almost 4 ERA. FIP was a 2.79, though. He does have some issues walking and getting hit hard. Other guys, Alec Jacob, who only pitched 9 innings last year, so really don't know with that. Wandy Peralta, the former Yankee, came over. He's serviceable. And then we mentioned Kyle Hart, but Brian Hoeing is another guy in this bullpen that is really good, but he's hurt to start the year. Tom Cosgrove's down in AAA. He's a lefty who can come up, had some time in the big leagues last year. Ron Marinaccio was a part of the Yankees organization on a minor league contract with them. J.B. Wendelken, another veteran guy, non-roster invite. He could opt out after spring training. But the team is just not healthy right now in the pitching department. And again, could this team instantly just shut me up and play amazing baseball for, the entire season and not just one stretch of the season like they did last year? Sure, absolutely. And do I think that they can still win 85 plus games? Yeah, absolutely. Did I think people in front of them got better and pushed and forced their hand to push them down a little bit? Absolutely as well. So I have them winning 85 games, 85 and 77. I think that's fair for the Padres because you're factoring in some of these guys taking a step back, not really having anything else to kind of look forward to outside of the guys you have there now. Because Musgrove isn't coming back this year. That is an absolute fact. So you're kind of just banking on and hoping for everything to work. You can maybe extend Cease, maybe extend King, but, I don't know. You're not pulling from a prospect pool of guys who are going to come up. You look at MLB prospects, and the 11th guy in their organization is the only guy that is above AA in the organization, and he's an outfielder, and he's had time in the MLB, and he's been whatever. But so you're looking at, a couple years until Leo DeVries comes up, a great shortstop. Ethan Salas, we've been hyped up about him since he was 16 years old in the organization, smashing baseballs. Cash Mayfield, a guy who they just drafted this past year as a 2-time player of the year in his state. Boston Bateman, what a name. I'm just finding out about this guy through this prospects, but he's 6'8". Like, that's crazy. But none of these guys are going to be ready. So it's about who do you got now? Can you extend the guys that are on your roster currently or add from whatever is left to potentially add onto your roster? The fact of the matter is you got beat out for Roki Sasaki. You got beat out for everybody else that you really wanted this offseason. So you had to settle. And it sucks for them because this was their chance for them to really leap up and take hold of that number 2 spot in the division behind the Dodgers and saying like, hey, you know what? You might have gotten us this year on some lucky stuff, but next year we're coming back and we're going to shove it right down your throats again. And it just doesn't look like they had that attitude. And there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes with ownership and the passing of the majority owner of the organization, and handing the inheritance down to the kids and them not knowing what to do with it, them trying to cut back on budget and trade some guys. And it's a whole mess. It's a whole mess that's something that we can break down in a completely other video than what we need to today. Right now we're focusing on the 2025 Padres, and that's my opinion on them. 85 wins is probably what we're looking at for the Padres. They could easily exceed expectations of what I have for them and what it seems like everybody else has for them. But when you're one of the only teams that has the playoff experience and the pedigree that you did the past few years, and you don't really do anything to enhance what you got, you only just kind of replace, it's kind of an issue. But this next team, I think, they had a little bit of an off year last year compared to maybe 2 years ago when they went to the World Series and had a lot of promise, and fans were like, you know what, this team can really, really, really play, and they can do it on all levels. They can pitch, they can hit, they can run, they can play good defense. And now, after the year where they missed the playoffs and the Padres take over that second best team in the division, the Arizona Diamondbacks went to this offseason and they said, you know what, we need another hitting first baseman because Christian Walker's gone. We'll take him. We need another starter because obviously things aren't working with just having Zach Gallen out there. We'll take it. We need some other guys in this lineup and this depth that we have in the organization and our bullpen that we need to shore up before we can go make another push. We got them. And that's what the Diamondbacks did. We all know about what they got in their lineup. Corbin Carroll leading off, one of the young bright stars of this league, was a rookie of the year, super fast, can hit for power. Last year only hit 231, a little bit of a down year, but I think it's a bounce back year for Corbin Carroll. Big time bounce back year. And in a year, he still hit for 749 OPS. Like, it's above league average still. Was a 3.5 win player. It's really good. But then when you have a career year from Ketel Marte like he did last year, 7 win player, or 36 homers, 95 RBIs, 292 batting average, 932 OPS, 155 OPS plus. He only struck out 106 times, walked 65. Unreal year from Ketel Marte. And I can only imagine it'll continue to be like this and prove that he is one of the best, if not the best, second baseman in baseball. And then they went out and said, you know what? Christian Walker's gone. He's been an awesome Gold Glover for us. He has hit the ball really well, but because he's gone, let's go trade for a guy who's younger, has proven that he can hit at the postseason level, is a 30 home run hitter like he did last year, in Josh Naylor, and bring him in to split that up a little bit so we can get a little bit more lefty looks here when you're facing all the righties that you are with the Dodgers that we're going to talk about in a minute. When you're facing all those guys, you got to have lefties, and that's exactly what the Diamondbacks did, and they're setting their lineup around the idea that we're going to have to face a righty every single time we play the Dodgers except for one day. And that's when Blake Snell starts. So we're getting Josh Naylor in, 31 homers, 108 RBIs, 776 OPS, gets on base at 320 rate. I absolutely love this. Absolutely love this for the Diamondbacks because you lose Christian Walker to free agency. This is a perfect replacement. You fall back immediately and you say, you know what? Whatever. Let's go get this guy that no one thought was going to be available in Josh Naylor. And you go ahead and do that. Other guys, Lourdes Gurriel was a great addition to this team. He's going to pop and play some decent defense. I lie. He's not going to play some decent defense. He'll be okay out there. Under average, below average defender. But his bat is good enough to keep in the lineup, obviously. A guy who hits 280 and a 757 OPS is what you want. Then you have Jake McCarthy, who had a great year last year after being called up the year before and not being great. 285 batting average. A guy who is electrifying on the base path, 25 stolen bases. He has a little bit of pop, not too much, but he gets on base, and when he gets on base, he's flying. Other guys, Eugenio Suarez, a guy who's hit so many homers in his career, had 30 last year with 101 RBIs. Pavin Smith is just kind of a platoon guy, the DH role. It'll be him and Randall Grichuk just kind of bouncing back and forth to the lefty-righty depending who they're playing. Gabriel Moreno, who they got in the trade for Dalton Varsho a few years ago with Lourdes Gurriel from the Blue Jays and has been an amazing piece to this team. Geraldo Perdomo, who just got extended a few weeks ago, is going to be their shortstop of the future going forward. Good defender, solid at the plate, just above league average in OPS, but a guy who's going to play really good defense, not going to strike out too many times for you. Absolutely love what this Diamondbacks lineup has become. Their bench depth, whatever. Jose Herrera, he's okay. Garrett Hampson, whatever. Randall Grichuk, good bench bat. Alec Thomas, another former top prospect of this organization. He's a good guy to have here as well as your depth. You're still having Blaze Alexander, who is an infielder. He's out to start the season, but that's another guy that you have as a depth piece, which is very, very important. Trey Mancini, who we all know from his days with Baltimore, had the cancer series about a year ago. Cancer-free now, is ready to be able to play again and try to prove himself to be a constant player in this league. They still have they got Christian Pache, who is a former top prospect as well. So they have the guys to be able to set their lineup in a way that balances out speed, balances out power, on base. Like, they got everything they need, and that's not even including a few of the prospects that we can talk about that could be MLB ready here as of this year. But let's talk about the pitching staff, because they went out and signed the top pitcher on the market. And sure, people might have their opinions on Max Fried being the guy or Roki Sasaki being the guy, but Corbin Burnes has consistently, for the past 5 years, been one of the best pitchers in baseball, and they went out and got him. And sure, he has been regressing a little bit. The strikeout rate has been dropping every single year, and it's become a little concern. However, when you look at Corbin Burnes, he's got the stuff to play no matter where you are. And Corbin Burnes last year, sub-3 ERA and 194 in a third inning pitch. His FIP was 3.55. WHIP was 109. Yeah, sure, the strikeouts were 8.4, but the walks are always going to be down. Corbin Burnes, even when Corbin Burnes isn't striking out guys, he has his stuff. His cutter is nasty. His sinker is nasty. His slider playing off his cutter is gross. He's added his changeup back a little bit more. The curveball that plays off the slider, like, everything he has is gross enough to be able to play, whether as a punch-out guy or a put it in play and let your defense play behind you guy. And with this team, he doesn't have to worry about punching everybody out, because he knows that he has Gold Glove right fielder, Gold Glove center fielder, Gold Glove shortstop, Gold Glove caliber second baseman, subpar corner guys. But so for him, sure, he might not strike out at the whole world ever again, but with his stuff, you let them put it in play, they're going to make plays behind him. And then the other guy in this rotation that last year had an injury beginning season, but 2 years ago was one of the best pitchers in the National League, in Zach Gallen, and his contract's coming up soon. So it's kind of like, hey, put up or shut up for Zach Gallen and what kind of money he wants. He's going to be around 3.5 ERA, never really going to have good control, but he strikes out a lot of guys, and when he's healthy, he is electric to watch. And that's a great 1-2 punch to have with Corbin Burnes and Zach Gallen. Merrill Kelly is the third guy. He was a Team USA guy. Still crazy to even think that Merrill Kelly is this good, but he's a 4 ERA guy. 4 ERA, not really too much, but he doesn't walk anybody. Allows the guys to put it in play. He gets hit pretty hard at times. Doesn't throw it too hard, so that could be an issue. But Merrill Kelly is your 3 is whatever, and you can eventually just kind of look at everything you have, and if you want to upgrade at the deadline, you can do that. And then your last 2 guys, Eduardo Rodriguez, former Red Sox, has had some injuries and some other off-the-field issues. Only pitched 50 innings last year, had a 5 ERA, but I think with a full healthy offseason under his belt, he's going to be able to bounce back. He's a contact pitcher, has some strikeout ability in him still at 8.5 K per 9 last year, but his stuff isn't hard enough to be able to blow it by you anymore. I don't think so. If he becomes a contact guy, as we mentioned with Burns, got the guys behind him to make the plays. And then Brandon Pfaadt, the final guy in this rotation, a high 4s ERA in 181s and 2/3 innings pitched. Not really walking anybody, strikes out a lot of people. Unfortunately, they just hit him really, really hard. But his FIP was a 3.61, so it shows that he got unlucky last year a lot. And I really like Brandon Pfaadt. He could eventually be the guy that fills in that third spot in the rotation. And then the other guys that they got to be able to play, Ryan Nelson, who has MLB experience down in the minor leagues. Tommy Henry, who can also come up. He's a left-handed guy if you want to get the different matchups. Brandon Bielak, who has experience pitching in the majors as well. So you have these different guys that can eventually fill in if, say, Merrill Kelly stinks or Eduardo Rodriguez is falling off again. You can fill in with these certain players. And then the bullpen. Speaking of the bullpen, the guy that they signed as a free agent to hope to be the guy to fill out their rotation and really be a mainstay after an incredible World Series against this organization 2 years ago is Jordan Montgomery. And he just had injury, got hit really hard, was not good. The owner of the team came out and said that I don't want him on my team anymore. Please get him out. And now it's a whole situation with him. What's going to happen there? I don't know. It's so weird. It's so weird to even think about what's happening with Jordan Montgomery and everything surrounding him. But other guys in the bullpen, Dre Jamison, another guy who was a starter prospect, and now he's here. And the other bullpen guys that you can rely on. Shelby Miller had a great year with the Dodgers 2 years ago. Was okay in the first half with the Tigers. Was their original closer, but he can give you some experience as well from the closer spot. Joe Manaply, who was an all-star a few years ago because the team was so bad, but he was their lone all-star. Ryan Thompson, who has really emerged as one of the better closers or one of the better setup guys, relief guys in baseball. Kevin Ginkel, great year last year. Justin Martinez, who I think will eventually end up being the closer of this team. And then AJ Puck is their slotted closer at the moment right now. Former Gator, so always got to shout out those guys. So you've got guys in the pen that are going to give you the innings. They're going to be high punch-out guys. Sure, a couple of them are going to walk a lot of people. Puck, Martinez, those are the guys you're going to walk and have issues with. And some guys are going to get hit hard, like Jamison and like Montgomery. But the rotation, matched up with the bullpen and what they got, gives me the hope that the Diamondbacks could be the second best team in this division this year. At 87 wins, I think is what I have them at, and I think they're good enough to be able to do that. I really love what they got going on and what they built. So I'm going to be watching the Diamondbacks to have a big bounce back here, and hopefully all their young guys, including maybe Jordan Lawler, their number one overall or their number one draft pick in 2021. He was picked like 5th or 6th. He has a chance to be able to play this year at shortstop. He could come in and play. He'll probably play 3rd if I had to guess, or maybe they move him to a corner outfield spot. But then other guys that are ready, Adrian Del Castillo is a catcher. He's a lefty hitter, can hit really well. That's what they're going to be bringing him up for if so. And you also got to remember, if you look back a little bit more, you look a little deeper into what they got here, they still got 2 guys, Drew Jones, the son of Andrew Jones, and then Tommy Troy, who was a stud at Stanford, are both sitting and waiting in the wings to be able to get to the big league level in the next few years. So know that when it comes to this Diamondbacks team, if they're making plays, it's like, well, why are they doing this? Because they know that in a few years, just maybe even next year, 1 or 2 of those guys could be coming up in the outfield and making an impact. So 87 wins for the Diamondbacks. I really, really like what they got, and I'm really excited to see what they do with everything and all the signings that they've made. The last team, there's really nothing else to talk about. The big thing to talk about with this team, because they're playing tomorrow in the Japanese series against the Cubs, is that Mookie Betts has an illness, and Mookie Betts might not play tomorrow. Let's take a look really quick if there's an update on his illness and what's going on. They're saying he lost 15 pounds, and there it is. As of 20 minutes ago, he is going to be out for the Tokyo series. That's big news regarding the Dodgers. And sure, whatever, they've got everybody else in the lineup they can slot in and fill in for him. But that's a big, big miss whenever it's coming to you're playing against two lefties. That is your best right-handed bat on your team. So now you're going to have to slide in another guy to be the righty. So we'll still talk about the lineup. Ohtani, Betts, Freeman. You're not stopping that. Teoscar Hernandez, stopping him. Max Muncy had an amazing year last year after a terrible year the year prior. Will Smith, ready for a bounce-back year. Michael Conforto, who had some amazing years with the Mets, has finally found a home, and maybe with the Dodger Magic, he'll be amazing again. Tommy Edman was awesome in the second half after getting traded there last year and in the postseason. James Outman looking to prove himself in center field again. Probably tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised, because Mookie Betts is playing shortstop now. Spoiler alert, that's probably an important thing to say. Mookie Betts is playing shortstop for this team. The thing to kind of look out for, I would assume Miguel Rojas starts at shortstop tomorrow and everybody gets shifted up one. Or maybe they go Tommy Edman at short and put Kike Hernandez at second. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. They had Tommy Edman playing shortstop in the postseason, so maybe they go with Edman at short and then Rojas or Kike or even Chris Taylor at second. Whoever they think can hit the lefty the best. It's probably Chris Taylor to hit the lefties the best, despite him really not being good anymore. I think Kike is probably your best option to go with for the electric factor of this all. But when you have, I'm just named those three guys off the bench, and there's still so many guys that they have that can be absolutely incredible for this organization. Dalton Rushing being their top position prospect. Hyesung Kim might actually get called up and play on the opening day roster, as he just got optioned to the minor leagues. He was a signing out of Japan for them. Maybe he comes up. Michael Chavis might be able to come up and play. David Bodie could play for them. Andy Pajes can come up and play in the outfield spot. They got Eddie Rosario. They have so many guys. It is so dumb how many baseball players they have on this team, where you look at, you're like, that guy's pretty good. He'd play on my team any day of the week. So it's annoying. They're really good. Sure, Mookie's going to miss the first two games, but he'll play on opening day most likely. He'll be fine. This team's stupid. And we haven't even gotten to the pitching aspect, which it makes it even more stupid, because they're starting rotation, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, one of the superstar signings out of Japan, Blake Snell, who's a former Cy Young winner, Tyler Glasnow, who missed the postseason last year, and they still won the World Series without him. He's coming back. Dustin May is returning to a starting role. Tony Gonsolin is coming back from injury. They got Clayton Kershaw back. He'll give you whatever. And then your bullpen, it's like, whatever. Sure, Evan Phillips and Michael Kopech are missing from the opening day bullpen because they're hurt and recovering from some shoulder and forearm tightness. But you're having to throw in Justin Robleski, who started in a couple games for you last year, or Jack Dreyer, or Ben Kasparius. But whatever, because you have Anthony Bonda still. You have Alex Vesia, your two lefties right there. Blake Trinan, and then here's the 7th, 8th, 9th. Blake Trinan, good night. Kirby Yates, who you signed, was one of the best closers in baseball last year at a 1.17 ERA for the Rangers. What? Trinan in the 7th, Kirby Yates in the 8th, and then Tanner Scott in the 9th, who was a 1.75 ERA last year, 22 saves in 72 innings pitched. Like, what in the hell? I don't get it. How do they keep getting these people? That's not even factoring in that Emmett Shaheen is hurt and Gavin Stone is hurt. He could be coming back at some point. Brusdar Graterol is coming back in the second half. Who else? I mean, you could just start naming guys off at this point. Bobby Miller, who got optioned down, he can come up and play for this team at some point. Luis Garcia sucked with the Red Sox, but I'm sure with the Dodgers, anything can get fixed there. Giovanni Gallegos, who was the 8th inning guy for the Cardinals for like 5 years, and he just fell off the face of the earth, and he can easily come into this team now and become a guy. And it's so annoying to watch because they just have every baseball player that you could possibly imagine. They're probably going to sign Dylan Cease next year too, because why not? Now, does their minor league take a little bit of a hit because of it? Sure, but it's still really solid, and all the guys that they have down there in the minor leagues has a chance in the next few years to make a play in the MLB, and it is absolutely crazy that they're just getting away with all this. I'm joking, obviously. They have put in the work to be able to get all these guys. It's annoying to watch, obviously. However, This is the best team in baseball. You don't even have to think twice. It is so obvious that they're the best team in baseball. I have them winning 100 games. There's nothing much more to say besides this team is stupid. It's loaded. Their starting two pitchers in Japan are going to be Yamamoto and Sasaki, pitching in their own country. Now, the Cubs, they'll have Shota Imanaga, so that'll be something to be able to watch out for, is having Imanaga. But if you remember watching the games last year, the ball flies out of that ballpark in the Tokyo Dome. So those guys, and then Justin Steele will be the second-day starter against Sasaki. So don't worry, because once those guys are done, if they had to play again tomorrow or they had to play again the next day, they've still got Snell, Glasnow, and May for the final three. Like, stop. I don't know what to do. I don't know. It's stupid. The Dodgers are so good. They're going to win the division. They're probably going to win the World Series again. If I had to guess. And Shohei is probably going to, I forgot to even mention that, Shohei is going to come back and pitch starting in May, probably, according to Dave Roberts. So once you get him back, it's like, all right, sick. We got every single pitcher in baseball from Japan on our team except for Imanaga and Yusei Kikuchi, I think. So they're so good. They're so good. But hopefully the Diamondbacks can kind of make a little bit of a run. Maybe the Padres surprise us a lot. Maybe the Giants even surprise us. The Rockies sure as hell won't, but maybe one of those other three teams will kind of make a little bit of run for the Dodgers and give them some trouble in the regular season that kind of bang them up and not, injury-wise, but kind of, shoot their confidence down a little bit to when the postseason comes around. Maybe the teams in the NL East that we'll talk about next week or at the end of this week will be able to knock them down. So, yeah, that's the NL West. I spent more time talking about it than I thought I was going to, but some of the teams in the middle were really intriguing to look out for. And I'm really excited to see how they go and how their teams are going to shape out for the rest of the season. On Friday, right? Today's Monday. Yep, Friday. We're going to talk... let's talk AL West. Let's talk AL West on Friday, and then we'll round it out next Monday with the NL East before opening day starts. AL West on Friday, we'll do the A's, the Angels, the Rangers, the Mariners, the Astros. Those are the teams we'll be covering. So if you know a fan of any of those teams, suggest them that episode. If you know a fan of any of these teams, suggest them the podcast. We got other ones we've done before. Once opening day starts, we're kicking it off. We're talking baseball every Monday and Friday right here on the Punch Out. And just follow me on all my socials at the Punch Out Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're starting to do some TikTok stuff. Watch out. YouTube, do some YouTube shorts. It's kind of the same stuff. So follow me on all those different platforms so that you can stay up to date on what's going on and get some extra content as well. I appreciate you all for listening. I know this is a long one, but hopefully it'll get shorter as the season starts to come and make it a little easier for everybody to watch. But I again appreciate you for making it to the end, and I'll see you guys on Friday.